Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 1st of October, comes to you from London. We start by looking at the dollar index. Dollar pushing a little bit higher again this morning, still holding the bullish trend on the medium-term chart. So that dollar strength still maintained there. Taking a look at the euro, we see that euro uh, is actually looking weaker this morning, just pushing to touch the lows we saw on Friday. Interestingly, the long-term chart just on support here against the dollar, but we're seeing the medium-term chart. We're hitting really big support resistance levels, so it does look like the euro is heading lower. The dollar strength really showing through on the Japanese yen chart, and we're seeing here just pushing higher all the time, which is looking positive for the dollar. And sterling is weaker against the dollar this morning. We've got a downside target of 126.60, so we are just seeing that weakness kicking in. And against the euro, sterling looking a little bit stronger, still bullish on the short-term chart. Against the Swiss franc, also pushing to higher, looking stronger there as well. And against the Australian dollar, sterling looking better too. Uh, Looking at Bitcoin, we see Bitcoin still looking quite weak all round, so just struggling to get any recovery going there. The US market last week did fall away a little bit over the week. Not a great deal of change though, and the short and the medium and long term trend still intact, and the short term trend also intact. Just a little bit of a shortage of upside targets is the main concern for the market, and that has been the case for most of the year actually. We do have a short term target some 3% higher. Looking at the Nasdaq, here we saw a better week from the Nasdaq actually climbing, and we do have an upside target here of 10% on the medium term, but it is lone target, so it is still quite hard to call the market at the moment. The Dow is also pushing higher, 10% upside target there as well, and here we do have multiple targets, and the Russell 2000 index is looking just a bit weaker, so the last week's moves not all broad-based. The futures this morning looking stronger on the NAFTA deal. So we're seeing the S&P future up over 0.5%, the Nasdaq E-mini up nearly 0.75%. So it does suggest US markets will open higher. The UK market, the FTSE is still bearish medium term, so that's a feature versus the US that Europe is just seeing that medium term weakness. The same on the FTSE 250, we're bearish below the cloud. On the DAX, we're also finding that we're just finding some support on the short term, but medium term not looking great. And the CAC Current also just struggling a little bit. Tokyo was fairly flat overnight. So holding last week's gains is the key thing. We had big moves last week, and holding most of those gains. That weaker yen helping matters there. The Hang Seng Index looking stronger on the short term, but still has work to do on that medium term chart. And much the same for the Shanghai Index. All the markets there last week really did rise quite strongly. The Sensex being a weak spot and just starting to look a little bit worrying on that medium term chart. And the Aussie market was down quite heavily as well, down some 0.75%, 2/3%. Brent crude has been above $83 this morning. We've just pulled back to below there, but we are still looking very strong indeed. Upside targets to 83.60, 84.40, and mid 80s is looking very likely. We do have one target to 94 as well. WTI, much the same picture. We've got sort of 10% upside targets to around the $80 mark, so it is looking pretty strong for this time of year. US Nat Gas holding that $3 level, so that's looking pretty strong, sitting at $3.02. Looking at gold, we're still a little bit weak on that stronger dollar, struggling at about 11.87, and silver also just holding its gains from Friday, but still looking weak medium term. US 10-year yields recovered a little bit back to 3.07%, and German bonds prices looking a little bit stronger this morning, but still looking worrying on the medium and long term chart. Taking a look at some of the constituent stocks, if we look at the FTSE this morning, the big changes in mining shares. So just clicking here on my columns to get United Utilities looking strongest this morning, but still looking bearish on this data coming from Yahoo. So we're just looking at weekly and daily charts here. This data still This price is still looking bearish here. Antofagasta looking worrying as well. Royal Sun Alliance fell heavily last week, recovering a little bit this morning, but this does look like the beginning of a trend change where we've had a bullish trend and now we're coming into bearish territory, so that's quite key. Looking at the fallers on the FTSE, EasyJet down some 5% this morning, sinking lower, and this chart has been bearish for the last few months on the daily chart. It just shows you the when the trend is bearish, you tend to get these big moves to the downside. And if we look at Barclay, still looking bullish on that long-term chart, but medium term we're struggling. And IAG Group, British Airways, actually looking bearish on the medium-term chart as well. So airlines just looking a bit lower. Marks and Spencer's down some 1.8%, and Randgold Resources also lower there as well. Taking a look at the Nasdaq, we saw on Friday Nvidia was the strongest performer, has been an amazing performer over the last year, just steadily increasing all the time. Intel were looking pretty strong as well. JD, the Chinese stock, looking stronger on Friday, but still in very clear bear trends. And of course, the real story on Friday in the US was Tesla. Tesla were down some 14% overall. The news of Musk stepping down as chairman actually hit after the market, so it'll be interesting to see what Tesla does today. Facebook also just still looking pretty bearish on that medium term chart, back into the low 160s. So really key there that we see that as well. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.